Hi, Gagan.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. And to begin with, if you can give us a bit of context on what has been the journey like for all these years, working with Janvikas and the other organizations that you're on the board of and you contributed to.
Well, we started Janvikas in 1987, and it was with me and one of my senior colleagues. He was a teacher of mine. He was a contractor.
Mhm.
We both started it, and it actually we started it out of fire, and the fire was that some of my we were earlier working with another organization, working with Dalit community, and we were basically getting them land rights, looking at cooperatives, income standard stuff. But we were working with the communities where there was still time of horseback and guns in that area. And I think when we maybe touch on a wrong nerve there or a right nerve, and I think the upper caste saw that there is a movement coming up, and why don't we put it down? So on 26 January 86, they came on horseback, killed four of my friends, my colleagues, and that started another process, legal process. First time we won a legal battle. But then I realized that, you know, there's no development without justice. And while economic development is important, while economics, money is important, if justice and the system doesn't work. So the strategy we chose is just not about justice, but I call it, building champions who want to champion causes.
Yeah.
And number of young people at that stage just came from all over, spent 2 years with us. We helped them, look at their passion area. Some look at women, we sort of Kach Mahila Vikas Sangathan. Some looked at ecology, some looked at communication. And it became a kind of melting pot as well as an incubator.
Mm.
And but my passion still remained in setting up a justice delivery system. So CSD has always remained a part of what I've been growing up with. And then, of course, young people taking it forward.
Nice. So you've been cooking a lot of justice under the fire of your passion in this melting pot of youth and everyone coming together in various sectors. But is justice served?
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm?
I think, I always say people who join me in some ways have to be better than me. And then it's great fun. But if everybody who joins you or looks up to you, then you are creating a non-sustainable system.
Hmm.
But if you have people who join you who are better talented than you are,
Hmm.
and they have a passion in a specific area, then working with them is a very creative process.
That-
And then it rolls. Otherwise, you just become I think seeding right leadership would then in turn cascade that process. Then you set up a movement. It's sustainable. Sustainability is not about money.
Yeah.
It's about people who can carry forward and add to that process. And they don't have to replicate. I hate the word replicate.
Nice. And in this day and age, I mean, sustainability is also looked from this angle of, say, tech, where we see a lot of people being replaced by bots or conversations and ideation being replaced by, say, an AI agent where they're not talking to a human. And some of them have stopped using their brains also. So, how do you see that? Is tech an enabler? Is tech hindering creativity? Like you say.
I think if it's an enabler and creativity, it's fine. But when it takes away
Hmm.
dialogue, when it takes away empathy, if you can generate an AI which also empathizes, I would I would then look at it differently. But I think human connection between two human beings
Yeah.
and groups and community, you can't take. I don't think technology can take that away. And on the other hand, if technology is making people idiots,
Yeah.
then I have a problem. If it
Yeah.
if it provokes thinking, if it provokes question,
Yeah.
then it's very good. I don't think it's a good bad. It's how.
It's utilized.
Yeah.
And do you see any use cases where it's been utilized in a way it should be? Specifically in the social sector, since you are operational with a lot of these organizations, you see them in and out.
I think it is slowly happening, and I think organizations like yours, for example, I think you have the right philosophy to not to give solutions, but to enable um, depth and quality of work. I think, and scale, yes, but this scale, after some time, you lose that connection.
Yeah.
I think we need to incubate more people, let them start their own initiative. Even our lawyers, I have lawyers who come to me who were with me 25 years back and say, Gagan bhai, those 5 years I spent with you is so much built my values of practice.
Yeah.
Some of them are public prosecutors, some of them are practicing lawyers. And I know one lawyer, he couldn't speak when he came as a young boy.
Yeah.
Today, he says, I worked with so many other lawyers, helped them. My daughter practices in the High Court. I'm training my son to practice in the Supreme Court. We will form an ecosystem. Now, you say, wow, move.
And in the sensibility part of it, where we've talked about the human touch, which is probably getting lost at some places, the idea of this ethos or the core that people need to have in the social sector and space. And you've also done a lot of work in behavior change in that regard. So, what do you think would take to humanize tech?
I think ultimately tech is used by people. If tech starts using people, then we have a problem. I think tech can never take away the agents. But on the other hand, I see some issues. For example, uh, we mobilize workers, migrant workers. You know, earlier, when they got a break, we could talk to them, look at meetings, etc. Today, the moment they take a break, they're looking at reels. Now, that's you know, that's just the technology is consuming them, allowing them to think of what the situation is, taking away dialogue. That's worrisome. How do you bring them back? I think we need, even in the reel, I've just started a podcast with a colleague of mine called Minar. We call it Unmute.
Mhm.
So, can technology help unmute rather than mute?
Yeah.
I think these are good questions to keep asking. As long as we can keep questioning, I think we will not let technology rule.
And enable us for that good that we're already doing, and most of you are already at it. But let's shift the conversation to these individuals, like you started with, where they were driven with a fire inside to create social change, and then also these narratives which are crippling them today were not there, and they were reading, they were actually in spaces, taking up space, taking up ownership of doing things. Do you see there's a loss of that in the youth and in the hinterlands specifically? Uh, and how do we change that?
No, we have normalized violence. And I'm talking not just physical violence. different types of violence are being normalized, and that's worrisome. I mean, human beings are basically have the capacity to love. Does technology enable them to love more, or just love themselves? I think these are questions to ask. If you take away those finer human emotions and then just bring it to what's in it for me, in Gujarati they say, "Maru su ne mare su." It means what's in it for me, or who cares? Okay. Mare su. No, I don't care. This, I think, this is worrisome if that would happen. But I see young people challenging this now also. So whenever I think there's more, there is a wave which will challenge. Do we support those? I mean, I met almost 45 of your young tech in that meeting there. It was 3 hours, but I think that they are reflective. And if they're reflective, change will happen. Right? We have to be hopeful.
And just to close on a positive note there, and not that the rest of it hasn't been positive, but how do we have NGOs who are still trying to do good but are crippled by, say, finances, by lack of tech, lack of support, to still be doing the good, being there to do the good fight?
First of all, I always say this word NGOs means nothing, no? And the full form is who you are not, non-government organization. I always say we are change organization, we are voluntary organization. I don't even mind the word charitable organization, but at least it's a positive identity.
Exactly.
Having said that, I think the mark today is even governing, is also influencing governance. Earlier state, market and civil society were in interesting tension, creative tension. But when market takes over the state, then it also starts putting the efficiency syndrome onto civil society. And I think we are talking of effectiveness. And you only talk of MIS, numbers, but human spirit cannot be MIS, no? And therefore, financing, um, CSR and all that, I keep telling them, I said, you know your job. Why are you telling me to do the job the way you do yours? I know my job. I'm rooted in communities. I'm listening to people. You are not. So then either trust me, check me out, but then don't monitor me like some factory output. I think those who see that, then it's great relationship. Those who don't, fine. But the state is scared of dissent. There's the state everywhere, not just India. Across the world, they're scared of dissent. Because you have almost an oligarchy and right-wing sort of stifling voices. So we have to go back to education, to political education, to asking for their voice.
Nice. Let's hope the human comes back to the chat and unmutes himself.
Yeah.
The better of all. On that note, thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure.